Welcome to Truth and Life Today with Congregation Adat Ariel, Jewish believers in Jesus and teachers of spiritual warfare. If you'd like to speak with us tonight, call 618-924-1851. And now, here's the lovely and talented producer Deb.
Welcome to the Truth and Life broadcast, where we do our best every week to bring you a biblical perspective of the things we see going on around us and the headlines around the world, in the same tradition as established for this program by Rabbi Moshe Lori. I am producer Deb, and joining me this evening,
Richard Peck. Glad to be here.
And over here in the corner, this is Jim. Once again, everyone, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call at 618-924-1851.
lots to try to cover. I actually just made a lot of notes over things that I saw off of various posts on the Telegram app and things like that. Don't really have the stories to back up a lot of it, but I just thought I would get the information out there. I was jotting things out today. One thing I wish I could find it, I cannot find anything about it, but I did see a person on Facebook. Um, I I'm sorry I don't know her name, but I've seen her on there several times, and she brings tidbits of information. And she made this statement, and I can't find anything about it anywhere. She said that Barack Obama has helped France negotiate with Iran behind the backs of the Trump administration to get the ships from France out of the Straits of Hormuz. She said that he did it, um, and which would be, why is he helping this foreign country? He's not even the president. He's not in any part of the information in any of the administration. So it seems almost like a treacherous, traitorous act because of the fact that they're trying to circumvent what the United States is trying to do to try to keep Iran under control, so we can get them to try to be feeling the hardship, right,
Right.
of what they're doing. But so this is an end run around the back, but I cannot find anywhere,
Can't find any confirmation.
nowhere. So don't know if it's just, I don't know where she got it. I went through different search engines, I went through different ways, all comes up with stuff that he did in the past, but it doesn't talk about the current Straits of Hormuz situation in France and the ships. It's not come up with that. So find that very interesting. And of course, France, I did have one of the stories about how France has gone. Who told that? They said that was Hananya Naftali, and he talked about the fact that the French prime minister has done everything he can to extract himself from the situation. And he said, Israel does not need us. And then he said, no French arms sales have gone to Israel. So he's waving his little white flag like, don't do anything to us. Do not try to bomb us. We are on your side. The Muslim community, be that Palestine or Iran or whatever. So he's trying to really separate himself out, back. So that's one of the things. But like I said, I cannot find out anything about that. So if you out there can find that information, or if you can verify it, is what I'm saying, because I'm not going to, we don't want to pass along any kind of false information here. But I just thought, I mean, she had said it with such confidence. I thought, well, I'll surely be able to find that story.
Well, the Bible codes state that Barack Obama, God calls him the son of Lucifer. So
Yeah.
that's
So,
pretty
Well,
awesome.
during the first Trump administration, he was advising Iran, and so was former Secretary of State John Kerry, advising Iran on how to deal with the U.S. as whenever
Right.
Trump basically froze the assets of Iran during his first administration. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me one bit that he's involved, especially when Iran's involved.
Yeah.
right.
If any Muslim country is involved,
Well, we know that he sent pallets and pallets and pallets of money
Cash.
to Iran, cash, emptied the banks, most of the banks in this country, loading up the flats to send over there to them. So, and I guess that's what's still under,
Yeah.
that money's still frozen. So they're wanting that back really. we'll talk about this latest deal with Iran just a little bit, but I did want to go back um, real quick. Talk about what happened this week in the primaries, particularly in Texas. Lance Wallnow, I was hearing him talk on his program called Firewall. I get Lance Wallnow's Firewall program, I think, from America's Voice, which I have Dish. So they have America's Voice. I don't know where else America's Voice channel comes through, but I do. But anyway, they play Lance Wallnow on the weekend, and that particular program it's called Firewall. But he was talking about the recent primaries, and he said he was talking about how much money was spent to go against this guy named Paxton
Hmm.
by not the Democrats, by the Republicans,
Yes.
by the rhinos, which I was calling the deep state against Trump and his picks. You see, it seems they spent what I think over like $100 million
On John Cornyn. Yeah.
on John Cornyn to go against
Mm-hmm.
Ken Paxton,
Is
because
that the fund that the former head of the Senate, the Republican head
Mitch
of the,
McConnell,
Mitch
yes.
McConnell, set up? Yeah, I'm pretty
Well,
sure that's it.
that has transferred to under John Thune, and evidently Thune is against Trump. Everything he's done in his actions. Oh, he talks a good talk. Oh, he's very, good face to face with Trump, but he won't bring any key MAGA agenda items to vote,
Hmm.
especially that Save America Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so he will not do it. And he didn't want Paxton in there because Paxton is a loyalist to Trump.
Right.
So they spent all this money. Money like Lance was saying, we need money in other Republican primaries around the entire
Right.
country to help these other people. No, they didn't give it to any of them. They soaked it and put it directly on this
Cornyn.
on Cornyn against Paxton. So be aware what's going on in your state. What we've got going on here now, we had Bailey trying to be governor against J.B. Pritzker. What have they done? They've got another guy who's supposedly a Republican that they're putting up to put him in there. So, as I call it, the Ross Perot effect.
Yep.
They want to split the vote
Right.
of the Republicans, actually, and probably pull over more independents. Therefore, J.B. Pritzker can't lose. And people, they're not falling for it online. I was seeing a lot of these things on Facebook. They're not falling for it, and they were saying that they believe that. They said that they think, I can't verify it, they think this guy that's been put in as a ringer has been paid by J.B. Pritzker to do it.
Probably.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
be
that's why I
aware.
call Rod Blagojevich to find a Democrat to run in the governor's race.
Right. Find a Democrat that can go against JB.
Really muddy it up.
Right. Yeah. Let's just split all the votes because, I mean, nobody is really happy with JB or what does they call him? Who was it?
I would say
Jelly
nobody
biscuit.
in Illinois is
Yeah,
happy
Jelly
with
biscuit.
J.B.
That's
Pritzker.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jesse Waters calls him Jelly Biscuit.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah.
Jelly
Yeah.
belly.
Oh.
No. No. He calls him Baby Back. Isn't it?
Baby
It's like
back. Yeah.
Baby back ribs,
yeah,
Pritzker?
yeah,
I
yeah,
call him
baby-
Jelly Biscuit.
yeah. It's a
Well, there's a friend of mine up in Springfield, Illinois, which is the capital of the state
JB
of
Back
Illinois.
ribs. That's
Yeah.
what they call him. JB Back.
Calls him Jelly Belly.
Jelly Belly. Yeah, JB Back. JB Back Pritzker is, I think. I don't know.
Pritzker's lost weight here recently.
Yeah, he's on all of that.
He's only
Ozempic
eating
stuff.
5 candy bars a day instead
Yeah.
of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's on the drugs. I think he admitted it. He's on
Ozempic.
on the Ozempic type stuff to try to get the weight off of him. So because he has ambitions, he wants to get to be governor again so he can run for president. That's his ambition, to win this time and be in office 2 years because he doesn't want to be out of office. He likes to be in office.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want to be out of office and then try to run for president. No, he's got to make sure he's in there in the governor's seat. So, but let me go through some of these other headlines really quickly. Avi Abelo, he posted a video today. Now he is in the Orthodox Jewish. Well, I guess he is Orthodox. He's not ultra Orthodox, okay, but he's in the Orthodox community in Judea and Samaria. He's American, but he made Aliyah to Israel. So I believe he lives in that Judea, Samaria area. And he was um, over in, I think they call it Ephrat, but it's actually Bethlehem area, and talking. Now he didn't show him, but he was talking about the pools of Solomon. One of the few people that I've ever heard else talk about the pools of Solomon. Dr. Blizzard took us over there to see the big, huge pools of Solomon.
Right.
Well, now they're talking about taking it back. And see, all of that area is Palestinian control,
Right.
right? And so it's gone to heck in a handbasket. I'm sorry, that place is, I mean, they throw trash everywhere. There's feces on the street. It's like, I mean, are in and around that area, and you just, got to look where you're walking and be careful. We saw a woman, Palestinian woman, come out of her house, and she had bags of garbage and threw them out in her yard. And that's what they do with it.
Yeah.
That's all they do. Now, Roy's wife was telling us, inside the house, it can be impeccable. Very neat. But as far as everything else, they just throw it out. Trash everywhere. If the trash bag breaks open and it goes everywhere, they don't care.
Well, they fit right into New York then, don't
Oh,
they?
they do. Yeah. So it's like,
Fit
that's
right
the way it
into
is.
France too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and France
Mm-hmm.
back in 1972. And I didn't actually spend much time in France, but I was actually traversing Switzerland. And on the route that I was traveling, I was in Switzerland, and I went out of Switzerland and I drove 30 miles in France and then went back into Switzerland again.
Mhm.
And the moment you get out of Switzerland, which is as clean as a pen,
Mm-hmm.
it's absolute nonstop trash until you get to Switzerland again, and then it's clean again.
Yep.
Right.
And I don't know what it is about the French, but it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what I was going to say about what's interesting about this, Aviel, he always gives updates on the Temple Mount and what's going on the Temple Mount and prayer going on the Temple Mount and different things. It seems right now, anyway, that there has been a lot of backing off by the Muslims they're not being, when they go up there, when the Orthodox goes up there to pray, they're not stopping them.
They're not harassing them.
They're not harassing them. They're not telling them, in fact, Christians are being allowed to pray up there. It's still dicey, but more and more talk is going on, and in taking back Judea, Samaria, taking back areas that were surrendered. And so there is a big push over there amongst the Israelis, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, to actually want their area territory back. So I just point that out, that I thought that's amazing, because I was over there in 2018 and saw what a mess it was. But now they're saying these are our areas. This is our history. We want this back.
Right.
We want control over it. And they say, well, we want to take this and make it an interesting place for you to come and see. And it's like, well, it is interesting. And they said, maybe even make it to where you could swim in it. Now, it would be extremely dangerous if they filled that whole thing back up to let people swim in it, because it's exceptionally deep. Those are huge.
You talking about the pools?
The pools of Solomon are huge. So anyway, but that's where they trapped the waters when the rain, for having the water to direct with the aqueducts over to the Temple Mount. I played that video last week of Dr. Blizzard talking about that, where he said that the Temple Mount is 80 meters lower than that area over there in Bethlehem where those pools are located. So just by gravity, they designed the aqueducts to come and slowly feed the Temple Mount all this water that they needed, not only for the ritual immersion baths to keep them as living water, but also to do all of the work that they have to do in the temple. You are slaughtering animals. They've got to clean all of that stuff out. There has to be a way to get that all, to keep that from being.
I had a 93-year-old Christian friend who's now passed away, but one of his questions was, how in the heck could they slaughter all those animals and keep all the flies off?
Right.
And I started doing a little research on that. Well, there's huge cisterns that were underneath the temple.
Yes.
And they used like a water wheel type effect, and they had water constantly mixing with the blood.
That's what they were bringing over from the pools of Solomon too,
Yeah,
to keep the water
right.
going. I mean, yeah, there's cisterns. It would be quite
And
it'd
that
be
what?
quite an effort to get that water up from underneath the Temple Mount
Yeah,
into that.
and the water, the the effluence of the drainage went to the Tyrolean Valley,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Right. Yeah, there's it was quite an operation and they had it down
yeah,
to of course it was fast as well. I mean, things didn't sit
yeah,
around.
yeah.
And so they kept it moving. But
Well, one of the things that they did was when they sacrificed a lamb, they kept captured the blood in a bowl,
mhm,
and then they would throw it against the altar,
mhm.
and
Yeah, they had different
yeah, so they
different
had to have a way to wash all that blood away.
yep. So it's all it was quite something what was designed up there to handle all of that. And if you go over to Israel, you can actually now go underneath the Temple Mount and see a lot of that stuff. They have been able to get under there and
They could walk
build
away.
pillars,
Yeah,
build these big, huge things to hold. We're it's particularly underneath, where you see what's called the Kotel, or we have a tendency to call it the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall. It's not called the Wailing Wall. It's not really called even the Western Wall over there. It's called the Kotel. That's where they all stand and pray. Women on one side, men on the other. Well, underneath that, that's what they've had to build all of these braces for because
right.
they are excavating and going down even further under that. And so they have to support all that because if you've got all those people standing on top, you've got to have it supported well.
Well, some of those blocks weigh 20 tons.
Yeah. And yeah, and so they've got that supported, and you can go under and see, of course, where the wall. It doesn't. I mean, you can see where
Yeah.
beautiful where those
And they
stones are
excavated to
underneath.
the original street that used to be there, the original, uh, I
They
think.
have well, that's off to one side. Yes,
Yeah,
you can go and walk under and come out. It's the where they used to all come up to go to the temple.
from the Pool of Siloam.
From the pool of Siloam
Right,
all the way up to the temple. Not it didn't go under the temple. It came out
right, at
and
the
they were
temple.
at the temple. And of course there was that what do they call it? Robinson's Arch
Yeah,
and the stairway, the big stairway. I remember Roy talking about. He said we were trying to figure out that whole thing. He said because they thought it went across, but then he said we figured out it came out and then it turned and
right.
came down. So, but anyway, all kinds of things that are interesting over there. But where we were standing looking at that, it'd be like the southern wall and the western wall together at that point. That's where they're coming out now. I stood there, didn't know that's where that road would come out, but that's where we were standing. And so they've got the whole thing now. So if you go over there, you can do that now too. You can go all the way under and come up the actual stones. Not, I mean, they're the actual stones that
Right,
probably Yeshua and his disciples went up and down
right.
all of that. We know, of course, I said when I played that last week, we were at the southern steps. Those are indeed the southern steps that were the original steps up into the temple. We know that Yeshua and his disciples went up and down those. So,
They walked up that road or that from the Pool of Siloam to
mhm.
the temple, and they celebrated a particular what was it water the festival of water or
Well, the
something,
water libation
the
ceremony,
water
yes,
libation. Yeah,
which is during Sukkot.
right,
So, and that's of course when Yeshua said, those who thirst come to me.
right,
He wasn't just saying those things. That's what's important about restoring your Hebrew roots to your Christian faith, to understand why he was saying the things he was saying,
right,
because he was answering things that were going on that had
right,
been going on for year after year after year that was ceremonial, that he was saying, no, this is actually, you're doing this because it's me.
right.
That these are things are pointing to. So, but anyway, back to the list of the headlines. I've got another story about this, but yeah, this is from Hamnanya Naphtali. It says Israel is broken from the office of the United Nations chief after Israel was added to a blacklist. So we'll talk about that in specifics. The other thing are the rise of these anti-Semitic attacks in California. There was an Israeli couple at a California hotel, and they were greeted with signs of free Palestine and that you're Zionist baby killers. So, and evidently these, I'm assuming that this hotel that they had booked to stay at is owned by Muslims. The guy behind the counter, that he was obviously a Muslim. That was verbally they had having verbal exchanges back and forth at a hotel in California. Helen Mirren, I think she was in England, was going somewhere in the evening, and she was verbally accosted by somebody who was saying, accusing her of being, now the dirty word is, oh, she's a Zionist. She stood up for Israel, and they were berating her in public for doing that. Switzerland, they've had a knife attack. So there was a guy that was wielding a knife and yelling Allahu Akbar in front of children and everything, stabbed people. I don't think anyone died from the incident, but had injuries. But thankfully, no one was killed. Uh, and the British Museum has canceled an ancient Israel lecture over threats they've received. So the British Museum, of all places, can't control these Muslims that are coming. So they're afraid, can't have this ancient Israel lecture. Oh no! So we're going to just cancel it. They're backing down. They're not standing up. And then Amir Tsarfati was his commentary about Iran. He didn't have he usually puts out a newsletter. Well, he's busy recording audio, doing his audio recording for his books that are coming out, all of these things. But anyway, he has things that he has posted, and says in some of his comments, he said Iran's playing for time because they're still funding proxies like Lebanon, and Israel cannot stop fighting in Lebanon. And then he also said that a target for elimination in Beirut. There was a guy that they've been bombing in Beirut, and his name was Ali Al Husseini, and he was responsible for missile operations for Hezbollah. And also, then they had a strike in Gaza, and the target of that was a brigade commander of Gaza City. So they took him down. And they are still, surgically striking these people.
That were involved in the October 7th massacre.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Also, Trump is wanting, of course, all these countries to join the Abraham Accords. I've got some of that to talk about as well. So just wanted to catch up on some of those headlines and things that I was seeing and kind of, talk about that. Back here in this country, right? The most extensive security plan ever is planned for Sunday because they're going to have an Israel parade in New York City.
Oh, boy.
Right? So Zoran Mamdani, the smiling communist Muslim mayor of New York City, said on Thursday that there will be appropriate security at the Salute to Israel parade scheduled for Sunday.
Which means no security.
Right. Which he plans to skip this event, despite a tradition set by his predecessors. Oh, there's going to be security, but he's not going to be there.
No.
We expect tens of thousands of New Yorkers and visitors to gather along Fifth Avenue for this event. And while I will not be attending, our administration has been preparing for weeks to ensure the parade is safe for all those who take part. And this is according to Mamdani, that he said at a press conference at the New York City Police Department headquarters. Now, I guess we'll give him this. He's not going to be a hypocrite. So he's not going to go there because, he hates Israel. You know that, he wants to arrest Netanyahu if Netanyahu ever comes to New York, right? So, but anyways, as the mayor of our city, I take seriously my responsibility to protect the safety and well-being of every New Yorker and every event, regardless of my attendance, he says. Jessica Tisch, commissioner of the New York Police Department, who is Jewish, also spoke at the press conference. It's the largest celebration of its kind outside of Israel, and for so many of us, it's one of the most joyful days of the year, she said. But the sobering truth is, it is also taking place at a heightened threat environment with multiple threat vectors active at the same time. Since October 7th, 2023, we have seen an unacceptable rise in anti Semitism and dozens of attacks across the United States, Canada, and Europe targeting the Jewish community. And in California, right? That has only increased in the wake of the start of hostilities in Iran on February 28th, Tish said. She noted that 2 weeks ago, a Kataib Hezbollah commander connected to approximately 18 attacks and attempted attacks across Europe and Canada in just the past few months alone was arrested for those attacks and for allegedly planning to target a synagogue in New York City. In that threat environment, to be blunt, we are not messing around with security at this year's parade, Tish told reporters. The New York PD is one of the most robust municipal counterterrorism capabilities of any city in the world. They have to. And I am bringing all of that to bear for this year's parade. This Sunday, New Yorkers will see the most extensive security plan that the New York PD has ever put together for the Salute to Israel parade, including the largest number of officers ever assigned to that detail. I'm assuming nobody has the weekend off, right? Included in that security plan, of course, will be the most heavy weapons teams ever, robust camera coverage of the area, and comprehensive screening of everyone entering the parade route, including spectators, vendors, participants, and the press. If you think you are too important to be screened, don't come, she said. There will be no exceptions.
Well, that's why Mamdani's not coming. He's going to be screened.
Yeah. The NYPD will also screen and sweep all assets deployed on the route, including vehicles and porta potties, according to Tish. And you know what? I bet they're starting right now. They seal up all the manhole covers in New York. All of that. We will not tolerate any disruptions to the parade. Any unauthorized persons entering the parade route will be arrested. The public should also expect to see counterterrorism teams, explosive detection canines, helicopters, drones, emergency service, mounted unit, hostile surveillance teams, and other assets.
Wow.
Can you imagine how much this is going to cost?
Wow.
I can't imagine. And all the pressure cookers, sharp objects, and flammable chemicals flying off the shelves at a record rate.
Yes. Well, let's hope not. We're going to cover this thing with prayer, right?
Yeah.
There will be designated screening entry points at E61st, 63rd, 66th, 70th, and 73rd Streets off Madison Avenue, and the entire west side of Central Park West, which borders Fifth Avenue, will be closed off to pedestrians and parade viewers, according to Tish. I know. I stayed there, right there on the Helmsley Park Lane is what it was called. I think it's just called the Park Lane again. Historically, parade viewers lined both sides of the legendary Fifth Avenue, where the parade has been held annually since 1964. At this time, there are no serious or credible threats against the parade, Tish said at the briefing. Mark Traeger, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council New York, which organizes the annual Show of Pride that typically attracts more than 250,000 participants and spectators, also spoke at the press conference. We are expecting one of the biggest turnouts ever this Sunday at the Israel Day on 5th Parade. He said, we are expecting sunny and 70-degree weather. Baruch Hashem, praise God. And the Knicks are going to the NBA Finals, all happening at the same time, he says. We're expecting tens of thousands of folks from New York, across the state, across the region, even folks from the tri-state region and beyond, in celebration of our love and our story and our pride and our identity of who we are as a people, Traeger said. Liz Burney, Director of Research and Special Projects at the Zionist Organization of America, said during an online meeting about the parade's history on Thursday that fewer people might show up for fear of a terror attack. I'm hearing this from other organizations marching in the parade, that they have people calling them and canceling. It's not what the parade should be. Mamdani has said that, breaking with decades-long custom from City Hall, he won't march in the parade. Jewel Menon, Speaker of the New York City Council, who is Jewish, intends to be part of the parade, as do candidates in upcoming Democratic congressional primaries around the city scheduled for next month. It's the mayor's decision not to march, and it is my decision to march proudly, Tish told reporters. A reporter asked Mamdani if he will send someone to represent his administration in his absence. Tish looked at Mamdani and pointed at herself and smiled. Okay, the reporter said, amid some laughter. So that's an answer. So that's what's going on. Oh, goodness. What is on that? All righty. So prayers to cover everyone that wants to go to this event on Sunday in New York City. Quite the challenge that they've got. So
Prayers for Madison Square Garden too,
hmm,
because if a riot breaks out there won't be any police officers to help.
nope. Well, they'll all be there.
Yeah,
They'll all be on. They
it'll be a while.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went and saw a taping of the ABC Good Morning America back in, I don't know, it was like, I think it was, I want to say like 2008, something like that. And maybe 2009, but I think it was 2008. And no, I know when I was in New York, 2007. I do now remember. And we that morning Hillary Clinton was supposed to be there. And we didn't know that. We just were standing in line to go. And we noticed it was kind of strange, all the security around. And we eventually got we were kind of at the beginning of the line because we had tickets because we worked at an ABC station. So we were like put to the front of the line. One woman behind me got really upset, and she was thinking we were cutting in line. We were kind of actually in a separate line. And it's like, we turned around and she was like, just my daughter and I, we've stayed out here all she was like going to go off. And it's like, we work for ABC. And she's like, it's like, I had these tickets in my hand, and it's like, and she was like, she just, kind of quieted down after that. But it's like, we work for ABC. So anyway, so they took us in, and there was a guy with a dog, right? So we were all brought into the studio, and then all of a sudden the dog sat down and a door was closed behind us. And I was like, and it was kind of weird. The other thing was that Jack Hanna was there, and he had all of his wild animals. So we had to stand in the studio while he brought one of his big kitties in to see to see how the kitty handled it.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I mean, we weren't saying a word, but I was thinking, it's like, what if the cat doesn't like it here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we do then? We're behind. Where a door has been slammed behind us, and we can't get out. It's
Yeah.
locked.
Where do they want another back
Where
door?
do they want us to go?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Won't
that was
break
weird.
through.
But and then we went through the whole show, so it was fun. And then there was this gentleman standing in front of us. We were chatting with before we, was going through the rest of the, we got to see the people. Actually, got to stand and see some of the people there, and meet them. But we were talking with this gentleman as we were waiting. Turns out he was head of security. Not head. I mean, you're head of security for. Actually, he was like one of the top people. I guess he was the top guy, head of the security for New York. This guy was there, I guess, because Hillary Clinton was supposed to be there. And then he was going to be leaving because he said, yeah, I've got to get over because they're doing the security for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so he was like going through that day to all these places that because he was the head guy to make sure all of this setup for all of these security things, and this is back in 2007, that they were all going properly. But I don't know why he just decided to hang out with us and chat with us for a while. But he was.
You bring up a distant memory
Yes.
of Joan Embry bringing a cheetah to see Johnny Carson.
Yep.
Johnny Carson leans over and the cheetah jumps at him, and he runs over and jumps in Ed McMahon's lap.
That was planned.
Yep.
He did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He wanted to make a funny. So I'm going to look directly into this cat's eyes, and he's going to spit at me.
Yep. Yep. So as I had mentioned, it says we are done with the UN Security General, Danone says, after Israel was put on a sexual violence list of shame. This dude, his name is Antonio Gutierrez. He's a piece of work at the United Nations, but he is the UN Secretary General, and they're saying he is disconnected from reality after his office made the political decision to place Israel on a list of shame of parties suspected of committing sexual violence in conflict, according to Danny Danone, Israeli ambassador to the global
put
body.
Hamas on that list?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Danone said on Thursday that the Jewish state is freezing relations with the Secretary General's office. We are done with the UN Secretary General, he said. The global body putting Israel on the list is a moral disgrace that proves that Gutierrez has lost all credibility, the Israeli envoy added. The list includes Hamas and Islamic State, the most depraved terrorist organizations in the world. So I guess they're already on the list. Hamas and the Islamic State's already on the list.
Wow.
The Israeli envoy said that the Jewish state submitted evidence and detailed responses to UN allegations and invited representatives of the global body to examine the situation on the ground. The United Nations declined the invitation. Oh no, because then that would like prove that there was no problem and then they couldn't do this, right? This is all political moves. Stefan Djurek, spokesman for Gutierrez, told JNS that we've seen the comments. For our part, the Secretary General's door remains open. Djurek said he downplayed Danone's announcement, which he characterized as more symbolic than anything, and told JNS that we'll continue to work with the Israeli mission as we do the other 192 missions. JNS sought comment from the Israeli mission about the envoy's announcement. What the envoy's announcement means practically. Gutierrez's second and final term concludes at year's end. They can't get him out of there fast enough. His replacement has not yet been chosen. Ties between Israel and Gutierrez have been ties, it says here, between
I
Israel.
heard that Barack Obama wants to be Secretary General.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so did Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's that every Democrat president that seems to be there. It's like having control of a country isn't enough. They want control of the world, baby.
Yeah, they think. Yeah, the UN is. I mean, Donald Trump is a one-man UN himself. He has started
Right.
his board of peace, and he's done all he could to kind of uh, make this organization pretty much useless,
Obsolete.
obsolete.
There you
Yes.
go.
So last year's sexual violence and conflict zones report included Hamas on the list of parties credibly suspected of committing or being responsible for patterns of rape or other forms of conflict-related sexual violence. Pramila Patton, Gutierrez's special representative on that topic, said at the time that Hamas committed systematic sexual violence on October 7th and against hostages held in Gaza thereafter. I had seen a picture this week that 2 of them were eliminated of Hamas. Like I said, Israel's like picking them off slowly at a time.
Yeah.
Analysts have noted that anti-Israeli activists have been pressuring Patton to add Israel to the list, especially in the wake of Hamas's placement in the name, according to the anti-Israel actors, of being balanced. No, it doesn't have to be true. We just want Israel in there just because this other is. So
Yeah.
it's not true. Anyway, again, anti-Semitism on the rise. Now we're going to get into a little bit of this. Who's to know what exactly is going on? Report the U.S. and Iran reach an agreement. Decision is now up to Trump. This is according to Israel Hayom. Okay. So supposedly there's some sort of agreement to be agreeable to later on maybe agree some more, I guess. I mean, I don't exactly understand what they're doing, but anyway, the U.S. officials say initial agreement has been reached on a 60-day moratorium of understanding and the launch of nuclear talks. Most of the terms have been agreed, but the U.S. president asked for a few days to think it over. On the table, a ceasefire, enriched uranium, and sanctions relief. We shall see, because of course he had said this weekend he wasn't happy with what they were presenting so far. The U.S. and Iran have reached an agreement on a memorandum of understanding to extend. I don't know what that means. A memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
What does that mean? To extend the ceasefire by 60 days and open negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. Weren't they doing this anyway?
Yep.
They were.
They sure were.
This
Ah.
is a ploy
Yes.
to get another 60 days
Right.
of reprieve for Iran.
Now, Mike, it's funny you should mention that
Yeah.
because my question is, who really needs the 60 days? Does Iran need it or does Trump need it?
Yeah.
Why does Trump need 60 days?
Right. He does.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's holding him up here?
Right.
I don't know. That's my
Yeah.
question. I don't know what's going on. That's what I've been saying a lot of. It's like, what is he thinking of? Because I've got an article here that maybe we'll read this in just a moment. kind of a long article, but
Why is he procrastinating? Yes.
yeah. Axios reports citing two senior U.S. officials and a regional source familiar with mediation efforts. According to the report, U.S. President Donald Trump has not yet given his final approval for the document to be signed. According to the U.S. officials, most of the deal's terms were already agreed on Tuesday, but most sides still needed approval from their top leadership. The officials said that Iranians later conveyed that they had obtained the necessary approvals and were ready to sign. U.S. negotiators briefed Trump on the details of the final agreement, but he was in no hurry to sign off on it. The president told the mediators he wants a few days to think about it. The U.S. officials said the memorandum of understanding would stipulate that navigation through the Strait of Hormuz would be unrestricted, meaning Iran would not charge fees from vessels or harass them in connection with the demand it has made to be allowed to do so as part of the sovereignty it claims over the shipping lane, which is vital to global economy. In addition, the official said Iran would be required to clear all mines from the strait within 30 days. They were dropping them as soon as this last night, I think, and we were bombing them.
Right.
The U.S. naval blockade would also be lifted, but this would be done in proportion to the resumption of commercial shipping through the strait, the U.S. official said. The officials also said that memorandum would include an Iranian commitment not to pursue nuclear weapons and would stipulate that the first issues to be discussed during the 60-day period would be the removal of Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium from the country, as well as the issue of Iranian uranium enrichment. That's a fun one to say. In return, the U.S. would commit to discussing sanctions relief and the release of frozen Iranian funds as part of the negotiations. Oh yeah, they want that money. They got to keep that money going to Hezbollah. Yeah, that's one of the things. Well, I don't know if I have that here or not, but Israel has been continuing to bomb Lebanon, continuing the fight. And the concern is that they don't want anything about what Israel is doing with Lebanon to be entered into any of these negotiations.
Right.
That Israel, and in fact, a lot of the officials are saying that Netanyahu will have to he will have to insist that none of that come on them because they are going to defend themselves against Hezbollah.
Right.
Trump demands the Abraham Accord expansion in the Iran deal. And so it says here on a Saturday phone call with the leaders of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and Bahrain, President Donald Trump dropped a demand nobody in the room wanted to hear: normalize relations with Israel or the Iran deal is off the table. According to two U.S. officials who spoke with Axios, Trump told the assembled leaders that any agreement ending the war with Iran must come paired with expanded recognition of the Jewish state. The response from the Muslim and Arab leaders on the line? Silence. Trump reportedly joked, asking if they were still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my guess is part of this thing that he's kind of letting this go along with Iran is that he's really still working on the Abraham Accords. Okay? He's kind of using this over their heads, right? Because Iran has been a troublesome neighbor to all of them.
Right.
So if he can get them, it's like, hey, this is a problem, but I need you to do this for me so I can take care of this.
Right.
He's doing his little chess moves. It's hard to follow sometimes because we're not in the room.
Well, I think that's only part of it. I think he's talking to Xi behind the scenes too, because China is helping Iran hand over fist here.
Right.
So is Russia.
Yeah, so is Russia.
And he's like, hey guys, hands off.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do it without threatening and without. I don't know if he can do it.
Yeah, but
Russia has actually been giving Iran targeting information.
Yep.
Right.
Where to target the United States.
Yeah, and China's been involved in a lot of that as well. So Trump's demand was anything but subtle. In a Truth Social post on Sunday, he thanked Middle Eastern countries for their cooperation and then wrote that the agreement will be further enhanced and strengthened by their joining the nations of the historic Abraham Accords, and who knows, perhaps the Islamic Republic of Iran would like to join as well. He later posted a mandatory request naming Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia by name. Of course, the weird dude in Turkey, Recep Erdogan, he's still threatening against Israel.
Right.
The reaction from Arab capitals ranged from dismissal to laughter. One Gulf Arab diplomat, granted anonymity, called it a smart tactic to calm down the angry base, adding, "He will keep bringing it up again and again, but it will not be part of the deal." A former U.S. official said Arab contacts are treating the demand as a poison pill. Another former official described the reaction from Middle Eastern government contacts as disbelief and frustration. Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Asif was the most direct, telling Sama'a TV, "In my personal view, I don't think we'll be part of any accords like this. It would clash with our fundamental views." So that's another thing that we find out here. Trump's taking the temperature. He now with all the responses to all of this, he can see a lot about he can find out a lot about all of these countries. Like, okay, where are we standing exactly with them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Saudi Arabia's position remains frozen. No normalization without a pathway to the Palestinian state. Riyadh is also reportedly unlikely to move before Israeli elections, which must take place by October. Meanwhile, Jerusalem is alarmed for different reasons. Channel 12 reported that senior Israeli officials warned that the emerging deal, which begins with a 60-day extension of a ceasefire, does not serve Israel's interest. The concern is that the agreement leaves Tehran's nuclear program, ballistic missile development, and regional proxy network entirely untouched, granting Iran an economic and military recovery window that Israeli officials fear will be nearly impossible to reverse. As one official put it will be hard for the Americans and us to go back and fight. I don't think so. I don't think it'll be difficult for anybody to go back and fight. Senator Lindsey Graham called Trump's normalization push brilliant, warning that countries refusing it face severe repercussions for our future relationships. Graham added that rejecting the path would be seen by history as major miscalculation. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, for his part, pushed back on the pace of negotiations, telling the New York Times that the nuclear deal cannot be achieved in 72 hours on the back of a napkin.
There you go.
The Abraham Accords of 2020 were a beginning, not a ceiling. The UAE and Bahrain stepped forward. Now Trump is demanding more countries take that step, and the silence from Riyadh, Islamabad, and Doha is not final. It is a test. History will record whether they passed it. So, like I said, things that Trump does, we don't quite understand, but we're not in the middle of it. And we don't have all the information. Now, this article, it comes from today's front page. This is, of course, it's called The Nation's Christian Newspaper, and it's from Today, the Bible and You, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And so he's got this article titled here, "Why Iran Cannot Negotiate Like Other Nations." Okay? And so I want to remind us all of this. I'm not going to read every last word of this because I think some of it kind of is repetitive, but we'll get through. I may skip some paragraphs here. But anyway, Iran is not afraid of World War III. The concept of martyrdom or shahada is a significant aspect of Islamic theology, representing the ultimate devotion to God by sacrificing one's life to defend the faith, uphold justice, or resist oppression. It is highly praised, with martyrs believed to hold an exalted status in paradise. For the regime in Iran to surrender would be like denying their religion. They believe it is time for them to prepare for the arrival of the Mahdi. Okay? Just as Christians are not afraid of prophecy, the Islamic religions are also emboldened by their prophecy. What is the one prophecy that emboldens Iran? The reason Iran is not afraid of World War III is not military, it is not economic, it is not political, it is spiritual. Okay, to them. This is the hidden prophecy Christians do not know about Islam, except if you've been listening to us. We've talked about some of this, right?
Yep.
To understand the fanaticism of this Islamic regime, one must understand that Iran is not, again, it's a newspaper and it's hard to turn the pages.
We're just not used to turning pages
Yeah.
anymore.
And a rational state, it does not calculate costs and benefits and does not respond to incentives and deterrence. It wants to survive for the Mahdi. Therefore, sufficient military and economic pressure will not force Iran to change its behavior. They believe that they are called to prepare the way of their Mahdi. The entire Western approach to Iran is based on the premise that Iran's leadership, like every other government on earth, values its own survival above all else. And here's why that assumption is wrong, and why the wrongness of that assumption is the most dangerous blind spot in American foreign policy right now. America is fighting an ideology, and the ideology does not respond to the incentives that rational state actors respond to. The ideology is Islamic eschatology, and the specific version of Islamic eschatology that drives Iran's leadership is the Shia version. And the Shia version has a feature that no Western deterrence model accounts for. The holy city of Islam is the holy city of Qom. It's spelled Qom in central Iran. It's 150 kilometers south of Tehran. The Jamkaran Mosque is a blue tiled dome rising above the desert. This is the site where Shia tradition teaches that the Mahdi, the messianic figure of Islamic eschatology, will one day emerge. Pilgrims come here by the millions. They drop prayer requests into a well on the grounds, requests addressed directly to the Mahdi, asking him to come. The Iranian government has spent hundreds of millions of dollars expanding this site. It would be a shame if a bomb fell on that, wouldn't it?
I thought you were going to say they spent hundreds of millions of dollars of cleaning out the well.
Mm-mm.
All those pieces of paper thrown in there.
The regime does not treat the Mahdi as a metaphor. It treats the Mahdi as a person who is coming. And the preparations at Jamkaran are physical, architectural, and funded. The distinction between the two major branches of Islam that makes this mosque matter is not theological trivia. It is the operating system of the Iranian regime. Both groups believe in a messianic figure called the Mahdi, a figure who will appear at the end of history to establish justice, destroy the enemies of Islam, and bring the entire world under Islamic governance. Both groups believe the Mahdi is coming, but they disagree on the conditions for his arrival. The Sunni version is comparatively passive. The Mahdi will come when God decides. The faithful wait. The Shia version is different. And the difference is what makes Iran dangerous in a way that no other nation on earth is dangerous. Because the Shia version, the version believed by the men who control Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's missile program, Iran's nuclear ambitions, and Iran's proxy networks, say that chaos and war must precede the Mahdi's arrival. The Mahdi does not come during peace. The Mahdi comes during destruction, global destruction, the worst destruction, the closer the Mahdi, right? But the Mahdi belief is just the foundation. What the Mahdi is supposed to do when he arrives, the specific characteristics, the specific actions, the specific timeline is where this gets alarming, because he's saying in the article here, because the description of the Mahdi in Islamic eschatology reads like a photographic negative of the Antichrist described in the book of Revelation. And the parallels are too specific to miss. This is the figure at the center of Iran's eschatology, and the details of the Mahdi describe what the Bible says about the Antichrist. The parallels are not vague, okay? Now I'm going to go through this really quickly, all right? I'm just going to kind of brush over this, but looking at side by side, two columns, what Islamic eschatology says about the Mahdi on the right and what the Bible says about the Antichrist. Okay. Parallel 1, the timeline. The Mahdi, according to the Islamic tradition, will rule for 7 years, and he will broker a 7-year peace treaty with the Jewish people. That's what they say. The Mahdi, according to Daniel 9:7, confirms a covenant with many in 1 week. The Hebrew word is Shabuah, in which a prophetic context means 7 years. Okay? We know about the 7 years, right?
Right.
Parallel to the entrance, the Mahdi will come on a white horse with supernatural power, performing signs and wonders, just like it says in Revelation 6:2, right? Parallel 3, the companion. The Mahdi will be assisted by a powerful prophet. In Islamic tradition, this prophet is called Isa, the Islamic version of Jesus. Okay?
Hmm.
Of course, not the Jesus of the New Testament.
Right.
But when they go around and say, "Oh, we love Jesus," that's what they're talking about. Is this person, this prophet that's supposed to assist the Mahdi. Of course, we know that is something different. Parallel 4, the religion, the Mahdi will establish Islam as the only acceptable religion on earth. Of course, the Antichrist requires worship of the beast image, all that business, right?
Right.
Parallel 5, the capital, the Mahdi will establish his one world government headquartered in Jerusalem,
Oh my.
not Mecca, not Medina, not Tehran. They believe the Mahdi will be setting up in Jerusalem. Okay. Parallel 6, the conquest. The Mahdi will invade many nations. He will conquer Israel. Of course, we know what they say about the Antichrist.
Mm.
So, and then where is parallel 7? Uh, the 7-year reign. Oh, he has 6 parallels here. The 7-year reign, the white horse, assisted by a prophet, one world religion, headquartered in Jerusalem, conquest of Israel, and point by point, detail by detail, just like it talks about in the book of Revelation about the Antichrist, right? Um, and it says here, but the parallels are just a comparison. What connects the Mahdi to the specific nations named in Ezekiel 38 and why every nation in the coalition shares the same religious identity is the detail that turns the comparison into a pattern. Ezekiel 38 describes a coalition of nations that comes against Israel in the latter days.
Hmm.
The coalition is led by Gog from the land of Magog, and the nations in the coalition are named by their ancient geographical designations. Here is the detail that most commentators on Ezekiel 38 have not ever emphasized. The detail is not about the names, it is about what the names have in common. When you look at a map, Israel at the center, a sliver of territory on the eastern Mediterranean coast, surrounding it, radiating outward in every direction, are the nations Ezekiel named, mapped onto their modern geographical equivalents. The map reveals something the text has been hiding for 2,600 years. Gog and Magog, associated with Russia and Central Asia, Meshech and Tubal, modern Turkey, Persia, modern Iran, Kush, modern Sudan, Put, is modern Libya or broader northern Africa, Gomer, also Turkey, Bet Togarma, also Turkey, and the surrounding region. Hiding in plain sight, except for parts of Russia, every single one of those nations today is a dominantly Islamic nation.
Right.
Right? Ezekiel wrote this approximately 2,600 years ago. At a time he wrote this prophecy, Islam did not exist. Right?
Well,
The religion would not be founded for another 1,200 years. Muhammad was born in 570 AD. The nations Ezekiel named were pagan, Zoroastrian, polytheistic, anything but unified under a single religion,
right.
right? There was no religion category that connected Persia to Libya to Sudan to Turkey in the 6th century BC. The identity that, in its Sharia expression, is actively working to trigger the global war that brings the Mahdi, the identity whose messianic figure matches the biblical Antichrist, now binds Ezekiel 38's coalition together. The coalition is not just a military alliance or a geopolitical alignment. He named the nations, he described the target, he described the outcome, and the religious glue that binds the coalition together would not be invented for another 12 centuries. So, and then I'm going to jump through a lot of this. And here's why the direction cannot change, because Ezekiel's vision does not require a strong Iran. It requires a willing one. Okay. So we're seeing this now. We're, a weakened Iran,
Right.
right? Ezekiel 38:5 lists Persia as a participant in the coalition, not its leader. The leader is Gog, the northern power. Persia joins. Persia participates, and the participation does not require military superiority. It requires ideological commitment.
Right.
Right? So he goes on and talks about that. It says here that Iran has pursued nuclear capability for decades despite sanctions and all of these sorts of things. But anyway, he talks about Ezekiel did not leave the story unfinished. The coalition gathers, the nations march, Persia joins, and then something happens that no Islamic eschatology accounts for, because what happens next is not written in any text that the men in Tehran have studied. It says here, and it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face, for I am jealousy, and in the fire of my wrath I have spoken. Surely in that day there will be a great shaking in the land of Israel, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, and overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, that they shall know that I am the Lord. And that was Ezekiel 38:18 through 23. So we know the end of that story. But we can't neglect this, which we don't talk about often. And it kind of seems like when you see the negotiations going on with Iran, that people are thinking in our Western mindset that, okay, they'll eventually, capitulate, and everybody wants to save himself, so they'll go along with this. And that's not what's going on here. They're
No.
going specifically against that. They want all of this global catastrophe.
Elaine Rumaker sent me a text message while ago, or just a little bit ago, saying that the memorandum of understanding is an outline of items to be negotiated and is completely non-binding, which tells me it's as big a joke as what we think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that, like I said, Trump is working behind the scenes again. He's when I saw him make that statement about wanting the nations to sign on to the Abraham Accords, I said, there's another little piece of the puzzle coming together for the end time alignment.
Oh, sure.
His board of peace.
Yep.
His now the Abraham Accords, bringing that back into alignment. It's a realigning of the nations. It's setting things in a different order than what was normally taught of by people teaching about end time prophetic things. But I was seeing another one of those things come about. So that was one of the main thing that I saw this weekend when that came out, when he made that statement. He wants everybody to join up with the Abraham Accords. I went,
Yep.
there's another thing. There's another thing. Ding, ding, ding. In the end time. Just another little piece coming together. So again, we try to put a biblical perspective on the things we see going on around us. And there's another piece. And then what else do I want to cover here? This is one of the neat things. I'll have to show you a picture here. See this thing here. See that? Ooh, the airplane, pretty airplane. I like stories about airplanes. It says the Israeli Air Force has received the first of at least 6 KC-46A tankers that will significantly boost its ability to sustain air operations across the Middle East. The aircraft is to be equipped with Israeli systems, and it is unclear when it will enter operational service. Earlier in May, AGN reported that the first Israeli KC-46A Pegasus tanker had completed its maiden flight in the U.S. Yesterday, that aircraft flew across the Atlantic and arrived in Israel. So today, the Israeli Air Force is adding the capabilities of the Gideon. They're calling it the Gideon, the most advanced operational refueling aircraft in the world. Its arrival marks a true leap forward in Israeli Air Force's ability to expand its operational range, extend the duration of operation. So this is going to be their new refueling tanker plane. It is the first of 6 KC-46 Gideon refueling aircraft the Israeli Air Force has ordered from the United States. The aircraft was inaugurated at Israel's sprawling Nevatim Air Base in the Negev Desert and was attended by the IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir and the Israeli Air Force Major General Omer Chisler. The Israeli Air Force posted, I'm sorry if I'm not saying these gentlemen's names correctly. Its arrival marks a true leap forward in its ability to expand its operations. In the years ahead, Israel has a history of heavily modifying purchased U.S. aircraft with its own domestically developed systems. Notably, the IAF added that it will soon be equipped with the most advanced systems. The older Boeing 707 KC-135 can be understood as quasi-commercial airlines converted to tankers. The KC-46 is derived from the commercial 767, but is more of a purpose-built military aircraft with networking, self-defense systems, sensors, and more. The Pegasus can carry 212,000 pounds of fuel.
That's a lot of fuel.
Which is 15% increase over the older Boeing 707 RAM tankers. It is also much more fuel efficient, allowing it to offload even more fuel. These are set to replace Israel's aging fleet of Boeing 707 refueling aircraft that Israel relied on heavily during its 2025 and 2026 campaigns against Iran. Israel has also been reliant on its tankers to strike Houthi targets in Yemen and the controversial decision to strike Hamas leadership in Qatar in 2025. Its 2026 air campaign also heavily relied on the U.S. Air Force KC-135R derived from Boeing 707 tankers that were stationed at Tel Aviv Airport. During 2026 Operation Roaring Lion, the IAF carried out over 10,800 separate strikes on over 4,000 targets and around 8,500 sorties. These campaigns saw the destruction of Iran's legacy tankers and any ability to project air power. Israel destroyed one Iranian Boeing 707 tanker in 2025 and the world's only surviving KC-747 tanker in 2026. It is unclear if Iran has any tanker aircraft remaining. Israel and Japan are the only countries to have purchased the U.S.'s Boeing 767-based refueling aircraft, although other countries like India are purchasing used commercial 767s and converting them to tankers. Israel's KC-46s have been purchased with funding from the U.S. foreign military financing. Israel currently receives around $3.8 billion in annual U.S. military aid that needs to be used to purchase U.S.-made systems. Purpose-built KC-46s are heavily modified for military use, including EMP hardening. Well, that's interesting, EMP hardening.
Yeah.
Structural reinforcement, PW4000 engines, a PW4000 engine instead of a CF6 engine, and armored cockpit. So they've armored the cockpit. Converted 767s are tankers with KC-46 features that are generally not intended for the threat environments, and KC-46 is built for the primary competitor of the KC-46 is the European A330 MRTT, which is based on the A330-200. These are typically considered more operationally mature and have a wider customer base, although quantities are lower due to the massive orders of the United States Air Force. So, big new fancy plane. And they're going to get more of them there. So, that's what's going on with that. And this is interesting as well. On Thursday, an inspiring offer was made at the Jerusalem breakfast by the head of the Shomron or Samaria Regional Council. Governor Yoshi Dagan bestowed honorary citizenship in Judea and Samaria on Christian Zionists.
Huh.
Wow, huh?
Okay.
In his address, Yoshi Dagan referred to a recent announcement by Paris Mayor Emmanuel Grégory, in which he stated his intention to propose at the next Paris City Council meeting in June that honorary citizenship be granted to Palestinian civilians and journalists from Judea and Samaria and Gaza in what he described as an act of peace. In his announcement, he equated the October 7th massacre of Israelis in the IDF war against Hamas, calling them two tragedies and urging adherence to law, peace, and humanity. He is offering citizenship to the Palestinian Authority, also to Fatah, PLO, and also to Hamas. And he will bring them all honorary citizenship of Paris, Dagan said. And I must tell you, sisters and brothers, as governor of Samaria, I invite you to be honorary citizens of Samaria and Judea. In practical terms, the proposal by Paris Mayor Emmanuel Gregory is to grant honorary citizenship to Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank appears to be almost entirely symbolic rather than legally substantive. The mayor also spoke out about strengthening cooperation between Paris and Palestinian authorities. Ironically, Paris has granted honorary citizenship to many symbolic figures and causes, including Israeli hostage victims after October 7th. Rabbi Truly Weiss, the head of Israel 365, was enthusiastic about Dagon's offer. It is unclear what honorary citizenship means, but at this point, the growth of Judea and Samaria over the last 3 years and all of the new communities that have been built are perceived by the political leadership of Judea and Samaria as being tied to the strength of Christian support for Israel in general and Judea and Samaria in particular. Mike Evans, the founder of Friends of Zion, responded about 80% of the Bible stories came out of Judea and Samaria. The evangelicals are 750 million worldwide. The vast majority of evangelical Zionists believe that Judea and Samaria are holy ground. If you take it or touch it, God will curse you. And what was just said was very important to the greatest supporters of the state of Israel. Michelle Bachman, the dean of Regent University's Robertson School of Government, announced that they would be taking signatures of attendees who wanted to accept Dagon's offer. So you see the difference there, right? Paris trying to honor these people that are causing all of the trouble in Israel, right? Crazy. Anyway, what time do we have here? 8:30. I wanted to read one little thing out of I'm still reading the Decoding the Prophet Jeremiah book by Mark Biltz. This is a really interesting thing that he's done here. He's put things in order of, he's saying that the structure of the book of Jeremiah is very chaotic, that things that you find in some books, the timing it's not like a chronological book.
Mhm.
The chapters are not going chronologically. So he's trying to put them in an order to make sense out of the timing of all of this. And so what you need to do if you get this book is really, and I've not done this, but you need to sit down with your Bible, read the chapters that he's talking about at the beginning of each chapter. Now he does have like Jeremiah 1 here. But like on some of these other chapters, it's like the critical 4th and 5th years. Okay, it's covered in Jeremiah chapter 22, chapter 45, and chapter 36.
Wow.
So these things, he's put these together to make this under the, it's under the 4th year of Jehoiakim's reign and Nebuchadnezzar and all. He's trying to put it together in a timeline to make it understandable.
Right.
So, but one of the neat things he pointed out here, and I think it's on page 112, one of these little tidbits out of here. I wanted to share this with you guys. So, says here, shedding the light on an important scripture. Okay. He said, fasten your seatbelts now, as I'm going to share with you something very amazing about a scripture verse. And he goes, this comes to me from one of my great friends, Rabbi Yitzhak Shapira, founder of Ahavat Ami Ministries and the author of the book, Return of the Kosher Pig. Now, somewhere I have that book in my, I'm going to, Return of the Kosher Pig.
sounds like a Spaceball sequel.
Yeah. And he goes, here's the verse. Yeah. But so I haven't read that book, but I think I've got it somewhere. So I'm going to have to look it up. But anyway.
Is that an oxymoron?
Maybe.
Yeah. It's definitely Mel Brooks material, man.
But in Jeremiah 31, verse 20, it says, is Ephraim my dear son? Is he a pleasant child? In some Bibles, this is verse 19. Rabbi Shapira points out that there are 2 different Hebrew words used for son and child. We kind of, in our English language, sort of like, we really don't think anything about it. A child, a son, whatever. But it says here, in Hebrew, the word for son is ben. Right? Ben. Like we have Eliezer ben Yehuda. right?
Mm-hmm.
Eleazar, son of Yehuda, right?
Right.
And the word child is it's pronounced Yaled, spelled Yeled, so it'd be Yaled. That's the phonetic spelling of it. A child or a Yaled refers to one who is lowly and humble. Okay? A son or a ben refers to rulership, as in the Son of Man or the Son of David. It
Okay.
means rulership. Okay.
Okay.
So now everybody knows this verse, especially if you've sung the Hallelujah chorus. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with the judgment and with justice from henceforth forever and ever. Isaiah 9:6-7, right? We know this refers to the Messiah and not Hezekiah, as some believe. But because of the titles such as Mighty God, Everlasting Father, etc. But notice the order where now the word child or Yeled comes first, and then son or Ben comes second. It says here, the Yeled represents Messiah's first coming, humble and lowly, riding on a donkey. His second coming will be as the Son of God ruling on the throne of David. Daniel saw this in the night visions. He saw the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven, and to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom that all nations would serve him. Most religious Jews see two Messiahs coming. One is the son of Joseph, who is a suffering servant, and the other is the son of David, coming as a conquering king. Isaiah spoke of one person who accomplishes both. There it is in Isaiah 9, right?
Right.
And it says here, Ezekiel spoke of two sticks coming together as one as for Joseph, and the one is for Judah. The two branches becoming one could mean the understanding of the Messiah coming from the two main houses of Israel, but they really represented that there is only one Messiah who comes two times, right? And the time,
He got that out of the sticks.
yeah, and the time is coming that when that they will be realized, and then the new covenant with both houses really take off. Okay, just as God promised to pluck the people up, as we read earlier, God now promised he would plant them back again, and he goes along. But I thought it was interesting, the two words. Okay, for unto us a child, a Yeled, is born. Unto us a son, a Ben, is given. The child represents the lowly. The Ben represents the rulership.
Right.
And there it is. The one child, the one is one person coming two times. That's it there for, but the Jewish people, they were expecting two. But it says here, like you said, Isaiah spoke of one person who accomplishes both. Ezekiel spoke of two sticks coming together as one.
Right.
One is for Joseph and one for Judah. The two branches becoming one could mean the understanding of the Messiah coming from two main houses of Israel, but they really represented that there is only one Messiah who comes two times.
Right.
So I found that very interesting.
That is very interesting.
Just from a little tidbit there. Back to the Hebrew, we don't see it in English. We don't grasp the whole meaning
Right.
there. In English, you got to go back to the Hebrew roots to see and get the full picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, So,
If we got a couple of minutes, I wanted to do something that I joined CBN as a kind of a partner, through their telethon,
that's
and they send me daily devotionals every day.
awesome.
And today was kind of cool.
I'm going to be
Um,
right back.
It's entitled "You're Not the Sausage."
You're
Okay,
not the sausage.
you're not the sausage. If you've ever been in a hospital, if you've ever been a hospital patient, you'll agree that toward the end of your recovery, things can get a little boring. Sitting in the bed, you find yourself looking at the wall or trying to find something to watch on television. But by this time, your day revolves around your meals. I know it did for me when I was in the hospital for
Yeah.
3 weeks. That's the reason this kind of struck me kind of funny.
Isn't that
I
the
was
truth?
in just such a position one day when that glorious moment finally arrived. Breakfast. Yes. I could smell the rich aroma of the coffee as I beheld a dome covered plate. Some of it was doomed,
Yeah.
which contained the culinary enjoyment that I awaited. Carefully lifting the cover off the plate, disappointment reared its ugly head. There lay my toast, my 2 boiled eggs, and a blank spot reserved for my sausage. No sausage. We'll see about that. I called the nurse and alerted her to my meatless predicament, fully expecting her to call a code brown. But there was a there was a code blue, maybe a code red, but there was no code brown. Patiently, I ate my toast and sipped my coffee, saving the eggs until they could be properly eaten with sausage. After a few minutes, I heard a knock at the door. Aha, I thought. Food service is here. With excited expectation, knowing that my moment had arrived, I invited my visitor to enter. When the door opened, it was my nurse with a cart full of needles, IV bags, charts, and paraphernalia. Before I could stop myself, I opened my mouth and exposed my true feelings. I said, "You're not the sausage." Never have I been such a perplexed, never had I had such a perplexed look on my face as she replied, "No, I'm not, but I have another bag of antibiotics for you." We had a good laugh together, and she had brought something that was actually better for me. I am reminded of a man in the Bible who was also sick and on his back and asked the Apostle Peter for some help. Peter said, "I don't have any silver or gold for you, but I'll give you what I have. In the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, get up and walk." And he did. The sick lame man got up more than he expected. In his mind, he hoped for money to sustain him at best. He never expected himself to be healed in the name of Jesus. You may be hoping for something or someone to come into your life to fulfill a need or desire, but just think, what if God has something in mind for you much better, far better than your biggest dream? It can happen for you just like it happened for the lame man in the Bible. Our God is the God of something better, the God of more than enough, and the God of abundance. And Jesus said, "I am come that he might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." John chapter 10, verse 10, right? Abundant life is your promise. Don't give up on your dream, but be open to God's version of your dream. Believe it. Hold on to it. Let God surprise you with his dream for you. He will sustain you and bless you beyond measure. Oh, and food service, they finally brought me bacon. Amen. So this is very cool. I mean, I'm getting these every day now and getting it on my phone, and it brightens my day a little bit.
Yeah.
So
That's a cool story.
yeah, and
I've had that experience where the high point of the day are the meals.
oh yeah, yeah. When I was in the hospital, it's like. And the funny part was the meals didn't come at the same time every day.
No.
So, by noon, when your lunch is, it's like and sometimes it didn't come until 2:30 in the afternoon,
Oh, yeah.
but, yeah, when you're in the hospital like that and you're bored completely out of your mind, your life just revolves around the meals, whether they're good or not.
That's
So,
right.
that and blood pressure taking.
well, yeah, I mean,
And
Yeah, there was a lot of that vitals,
Vitals.
but you always love the word. They knock on the door and open it as a nutrition.
Yeah. Yep, they're taking your orders, right?
So
Yeah. Now I had problems with my mom. She just couldn't. She couldn't understand the whole thing that you had to like call up on the phone and order, and so
right,
that was a problem. So I told the nurses, I mean, either you're going to have to call up for her, and when I was there, of course, I'd try to call them in. So I tried to get the orders for like the evening and the next morning, and try to get them all in for her. So, but yes, nutrition coming in the door.
that's right. Mm.
I remember I promised I would read this last week. Inside Israel's secret operation to turn Hezbollah's beepers into bombs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
So
good teaser.
this was this is the story. I think I have enough time to read all of this. Doing this for Rabbi. Rabbi, I'm sure
Yes.
he would love this. And this is the insider Adam Fain. He reveals this stunning details about this. So the whole world was shocked out of its wits on September 17th, 18th, 2024, when the Mossad brought the mighty 150,000 rocket wielding Hezbollah terror army to its knees in an instant with a fleet of exploding beepers, right? Or rather, almost the whole world, excluding the Mossad operatives and defense officials who ran the operation, such as Adam Fain, who recently published a book in Hebrew called Hoda'ah Gorelit, or Fateful Message, about the operation and gave his first English language interview about it to the Jerusalem Post. In his interview with the Post and in his book, Fain made a series of stunning, dramatic reveals about the operation. These include how the Mossad lured a Hezbollah operative into an ambush to prevent him from exploding the beepers. The true story regarding how close Iran was to uncovering the plot, fleshing out how hard it was to get Hezbollah to lower its suspicion sufficiently for it to buy the beepers, showing how unwitting third parties were used by the Mossad to sell Hezbollah on the beepers, and how the Mossad later tried to make good to such innocent third parties where it could, and how Mossad's JYM, and many other leisure areas were effectively converted into a beeper assembly line when the agency had to jump the pace of its production and had insufficient space to do so using its standard operations area. It says during the interview in the book, Fain also provided new insights into the details of key strategic moments when top Mossad or other Israeli officials gambled and took history in one direction instead of another, despite the right choice being covered in a haze of fog. Fain also recently retired from the defense establishment after decades in operations, including as one of the top managers with unique insider information about the Beepers operation. He may still do other future work with the defense established and so publish the book under a fictional name to protect his identity. Another twist regarding the book is that Fain wrote it as a partial fictional account, but which is meticulously based on insider history of what actually happened, which only he and a small number of other top Mossad senior managers and defense officials know. The best way to understand the breakdown of truth and fiction in the book is that the vast majority of the actions taken by the Mossad officials mentioned in the book, especially Mossad chief David Barnea, referred to only as the Mossad chief, actually happened. But sometimes in the book, one character is a composite of multiple real agents to simplify the storytelling, which would otherwise become cumbersome and kill some of the pace. Such is the difference sometimes between Hollywood versions of intelligence operations and the real world. In both versions, the final result can be awesome and truly sweep readers or viewers off their feet. But in the real life version, the culminating drama comes only after painstaking and agonizingly slow steps and meticulous spy tradecraft, which laymen would never understand or tolerate. Um, so it says, according to the book, around July of 2024, the Mossad chief, Barnea in the real world, called the Air Force chief, Tomer Bar in the real world, who sent a senior Air Force operations colonel to a critical Mossad meeting, usually one not attended by outsiders, including the IDF. The Mossad officials at the meeting warned the colonel that a Hezbollah operative was getting too close to figuring out that the beepers were booby trapped and requested that the Air Force kill him to save the operation. This was only around 2 months before the beepers were activated. In the book, the Air Force colonel responded to the Mossad officials by saying he needed the agency to trick the Hezbollah technology reviewer into leaving Beirut and also to give the Air Force his exact location when he left. Next, the book said that the Israeli defense and intelligence officials fooled the Hezbollah operative into traveling to southern Lebanon where they bombed him. Questions about such operations, Fain told the Post, it's highly sensitive. The situation was problematic, I'd say. And there was more than one problematic situation that the Mossad had to deal with. Yeah, I guess you don't want to become problematic to Mossad, do you? Sometimes the problems went away on their own or more easily, and sometimes the Mossad had to act. This operation did not end Hezbollah's suspicions. The book noted that the group tried to ask the manufacturer, Gold Apollo, about the last message that the Hezbollah technology reviewer had sent to them before he was lured away and killed. The message was intercepted by the Mossad. And in any event, the agency stalled Hezbollah's review process long enough to get to the point when Israel decided to use the beepers. According to the book, in parallel to multiple Hezbollah operatives pursuing suspicions and carrying out various checks of the beepers, separately, they also asked Iran to carry out its own check. This involved a specific Hezbollah operative planning a meeting with a specific Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps official during the latter's travels so that he could bring a beeper to Tehran. Previously, the Post had reported, based on multiple exclusive interviews, that there was a disagreement between top IDF and top Mossad officials about why and when the beepers were finally activated. The IDF narrative has been that the Iranians were about to expose the beepers, and the operation was forced into action earlier than planned and possibly earlier than ideal, according to certain parameters. In contrast, the Mossad narrative has been that there were many points when the beepers were in danger of being discovered, that in mid-September 2024 was only one of these points, and that a separate major reason they were finally used was that the government had just recently taken a strategic decision to shift its primary focus from Gaza to Lebanon. So Fain explained in his book that at the time the beepers were activated, it was the most dangerous situation among the many episodes until then, because the Iranian checks into technology were of a higher standard than Hezbollah. He said that the same way Israel wanted the U.S. involved in fighting Iran because it has unique capabilities, Israel was uniquely worried about the beepers being discovered by Iran as opposed to Hezbollah. According to the book, Hezbollah had a robust debate about whether to purchase the beepers. There were definitely dissenting voices against the new device. They were extra suspicious when any manufacturer pitched a product, as opposed to if Hezbollah had approached a manufacturer on its own initiative, the book explained. Those opposing the new device said that Hezbollah would need to perform a thorough check and would need to review competing options. One thing that helped push the deal through, Fain said, was that the original communication device Hezbollah, had been using would not work for much longer and was no longer being sold, such that they needed to switch no matter what. Kind of sounds like an iPhone, right?
Yep.
There was even pressure on Hezbollah, said the book, to race forward after it had tried to drag out using the old device as long as it could. Once they would switch to a new device, they would not switch again for a long time. They reviewed every switch over to a new device as a risk and as a trigger for a new market survey in order to reevaluate other new available products, said Fain, noting that this meant the Mossad had a very short window of opportunity to penetrate the supply chain of the Lebanese terror group. If one tiny thing changed in the supply chain network between Taiwan and Lebanon, Hezbollah would demand explanations, including from their own people, the book indicated. The book shows what a large challenge it was to find a person who could successfully influence Hezbollah to decide to overcome its concerns. One of the reasons that Mossad pulled off such a systematic surprise attack was that Hezbollah's technology guardians were worried and checking for eavesdropping devices, not for explosives. Fain noted, keeping this advantage regarding Hezbollah's ability to imagine how the devices might be tinkered with by inserting explosives was a major challenge. If Hezbollah found out, then once they knew about the new threat, they could become much more suspicious and better at exposing it. According to the book, in March of 2024, Teresa received a call from Hezbollah to jump its orders of beepers from the existing 500 per year to 5,000. Okay. So I guess this is the person that Hezbollah was dealing with.
Mhm.
This gigantic spike in Hezbollah's volume of ordering new devices did not just happen. In the book, it was part of a campaign by senior female Mossad manager Einat, who connected with Teresa under the cover of a businesswoman named Lily. Teresa came from an existing company which already knew and worked with Hezbollah. The company was authentic and Israel did not control it, which is a very powerful combination for intervening in a suspicious terror group's supply chain, said Fain. Only through a mix of Teresa having already some contact with Gold Apollo president Hu Qianquang and Lily coaching Teresa about how to get to and handle Hisu, this Chinese president, did the original sale happen and eventually blossom exponentially. All of this raises a rough ethical issue. Just as in war, militaries that follow international law seek to keep collateral civilian harm to a minimum. The Mossad tries to do the same, but this is not always possible. With the Beepers operation in the real world, the owner and CEO of BAC Consulting, a front company established for Mossad purposes, a woman named Christiana Barsoni Arcidiacono, was one moment interviewing with NBC and the next moment disappearing. Without confirming specific details, Fain told the Post that we work on this. We try to help with collateral damage. We also soul search before we recruit and handle someone and ask, is this okay? Is it justified? Do the ends justify the means? In the book, the Mossad chief asked Oz to compensate and take care of persons who were unwilling agents as much as possible to reduce the price that they would pay. According to the book, when Mossad received the huge order of 5,000 beepers in 2024, the Mossad High Command did not pop its bottles of champagne. In fact, multiple top officials said they should refuse the order. They said that it would be physically impossible for the agency to produce a sufficient number of beepers fast enough. Furthermore, they said that rushing the operation could lead to errors which could blow the entire patient meticulous operation success to date. In the book, the Mossad chief pushed to get the 5,000 beepers. He ordered multiple divisions of the Mossad to reassign resources and personnel from other projects to help produce the beepers. Yet, top Mossad officials still objected, saying that there was simply insufficient space within Mossad facilities to properly assemble that many beepers at the requested pace. In response, the Mossad chief ordered the agency's gymnasium and other leisure areas be converted into temporary beeper assembly line areas. In a comical scene in the book, Mossad agents not in the know showed up at the gym hoping to exercise and were bewildered when they were turned away due to top secret gym activities. Fain said that insane efforts were made to make sure this new order could happen. There is no magic. It could not be done in one moment in one place. The first debate that the book and Fain unveiled is a previously unreported September 2019 internal Mossad debate about whether to try to develop a sabotage operation, which would eventually become the beepers, to be added to existing walkie-talkie operation. According to the book, a man referred to only as the deputy Mossad chief, but which open sources confirm was Barnea, around 2 years before he was promoted to chief, opened a meeting raising the idea, which almost incited rebellion from multiple top Mossad officials. So he was shaking things up, wasn't he? In layman's terms, the question was whether to try to produce a risky game-changing sabotage operation against Hezbollah after the top Mossad official present had spent a half-decade to pull off a prior such operation, which was now one of their flagship successes. Previously, the Post had reported that the walkie-talkie operation started around 2014. Fain explained to the Post that a central question was that worried the Mossad officials in attendance was, what happens if the walkie-talkies get exposed? We would lose an already built and existing capability. They, Hezbollah, would figure out both the old and new plots. The resources used up already and needed for such a new operation are not trivial to obtain. These are not regular operations and investments. This could have major consequences for the organization. The question was, is all this justified? Eventually, the deputy Mossad chief decided to go for it. In the book, some of the senior Mossad officials told the deputy Mossad chief that his request was impossible anyway because there was no device for Hezbollah that was large enough to be able to plant explosive material inside of it. However, the book then recounts how one senior female Mossad agent present broke ranks with her even more senior boss, telling the deputy Mossad chief that a junior female intelligence agent had recently published a report about a new device that would be large enough for planting explosives and could be pitched to Hezbollah. A large model designed and manufactured by the Mossad was later presented to Hezbollah. Fain confirmed that a female Mossad commander had a key role in these developments while noting that the specific Einat in the book is a composite of multiple people. You ultimately, Fain said, the deputy Mossad chief went in the direction of the new risky device idea because we started to understand that we could not always activate the walkie-talkies. They would only work optimally if the IDF was undertaking an invasion of Lebanon. So the two, the walkie-talkies and an invasion, are complementary and would need to be combined. The beepers could be used all the time, including during routine peacetime periods, making them more versatile as a sabotage weapon. Pieces of the same debate would be famously reenacted on October 11th, 2023, when the IDF High Command pushed for carrying out a massive preemptive strike on Hezbollah. This might have changed the course of history by beating the Lebanese terror group nearly a year earlier. However, most Mossad sources said that the beepers were not fully developed yet then, and the walkie-talkies might have flopped if Hezbollah left most of them in warehouses where they were then being stored, awaiting a moment when the Hezbollah fighters might be called to put on their battle vests and rush to the border. The book recounts a meeting at Tel Aviv military headquarters in the first half of September 2024 when the IDF chief of staff, who we know was then Herzl Halevi, held a meeting with top Mossad officials on his turf, but without the presence of the Mossad chief. According to the book and Fain, the IDF chief said, we should not open up a general war at a moment that is less advantageous. If you buy an engagement ring, it does not mean that you ultimately must get married. If it turns out that the timing or some other factor is off. In the book, and according to independent sources who have spoken to the Post, Halevi made similar pronouncements at a decisive meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on September 14, 2024, only 3 days before the beepers were activated. Halevi knew that the beepers operation was a great potential initial strike to throw Hezbollah off. But other military timing and readiness factors were possibly even more important. Fain told the Post it was a legitimate substantive disagreement. They, the IDF, were coming at it from a different perspective. They had conceptual responsibility for the entire body of Israel. The IDF is responsible for the entire war. The sufficiency in volume and quality of attack munitions, the ground forces, the volume of aerial defense interceptors, the home front in a broader sense. It was not grossly unreasonable. But in the book and in real life, the Mossad chief, Barnea, and also Fain argued that once the government had decided that it needed to bring the northern residents back, Israel needed to use all of its capabilities. This weapon could have real strategic value. In colorful fashion, Fain added to his book, one of the Mossad officials responded to Halevi that it is one thing to rethink an engagement ring in a vacuum. It is another thing to rethink an engagement if the groom has already gotten the bride pregnant. you know?
Yep.
In the book, Halevi disregards this comment, and various officials present decry the Mossad officials' crudeness. But the point behind it was that the beepers operation was so far along and so close to success that it was like a woman who was pregnant and about to give birth. To call off the wedding, metaphorically, or the Mossad official was saying, to call off the beepers operation in the real world so late in the game would be an unthinkable last-second wasteful decision. Fain argued that the defense established needed to assess what would be the best timing. The timing could be very strategic for how large of an impact the beepers would have. He noted, and this could even have been the decisive factor. If the Mossad had proved Israel could have achieved killing far more Hezbollah officials. True, if Israel had fooled Hezbollah fighters into rushing to the border in their full gear, the walkie talkies could have killed 3 times as many of them. But even if Israel missed that achievement, it had an alternative history changing achievement. The beepers, as they were actually used, even if the impact was more limited in total numbers, achieved breaking Hezbollah's spirit. Furthermore, the Mossad worried that if Israel had followed the IDF view and delayed springing the beepers on Hezbollah until October, such a move might have sacrificed the whole operation by exposing a number of beepers. In any event, the prime minister decided, and it turned out to be a very correct decision, the beeper capability was tremendous, said Fain. Another debate that Fain revealed to the Post and which the book describes, but which was unreported until now, was whether the walkie talkies would be used immediately after the beepers, as they were the next day in the real world, or whether Israel would take some time to observe how the beepers affected Hezbollah before deciding if and when to activate the walkie talkie explosions. Once again, the book portrays the IDF as wanting more time, concerned about the consequences of rushing in and yet another Mossad operation. In real time, the book says the IDF chief thought it was possible that if Israel only hit Hezbollah with the beepers, it might take the hit without launching a massive counterstrike. But if Israel hit it consecutively with the beepers and then the walkie talkies, this might drive Hezbollah into such a counterstrike before the IDF could launch its own general war to head off that threat. Fain confirmed to the Post that this was a real and serious debate, and that using 2 Mossad flagship sabotage operations consecutively, one right after the other, was not an automatic decision, meaning Hezbollah could have theoretically discovered the walkie talkies in interim. In the end, Netanyahu decided to go with the walkie talkies the day after the beepers. And Hezbollah was thrown into even greater confusion and paranoia, helping the IDF strike it sooner after with its helping the IDF strike it sooner after with its guard down completely. But none of this was obvious or a foregone conclusion in real time. Fain readily acknowledges that there was a price on the family. Anyone in the defense establishment who spends extended times in operations overseas knows how much of a challenge it is to preserve a loving family. You can be present even when not physically present, such as speaking on the phone to make sure children study for a test and to be really happy with them when they achieve things, he said. Fain stated, we need to work on this all the time. You need to help them have a normal life, and you need their willingness, resilience, and support over many years. When you're in Israel, you cannot just go out alone or with friends on a long biking trip. The family must always come first, added Fain. Part of the formula does often involve Mossad and defense officials taking a year or multiple years off to refresh themselves in the normal civilian world in between an otherwise intelligence focused career. Both of the last 2 Mossad directors, Barnea and Cohen, spent time outside of the Mossad before returning for higher positions. Ultimately, Fain emphasized while marriages and families with inherent problems may find it harder under the stress, those with strong foundations emerge even stronger in some ways. And this is all an excerpt from his book called Hoda'a Goralit. I don't know if it will ever be put out in English, but right now it's out in Hebrew. So I imagine, I mean, if it's sort of, I mean, it's like anybody who's in a war environment, right? It's like the PTSD after a while. So these people are probably
What's going to happen next?
yeah.
Well, you're everywhere you go, you're doing a threat assessment.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm sure that's got to drive you nuts.
Yeah,
Just
it's got to be tough to be in Mossad, but they have pulled off some incredible things.
Yeah.
I mean, just to see what they did that to take out the leaders of Iran,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, I've heard a little bit about that, them saying that, well, they told Netanyahu and trolled Trump. I guess they told Netanyahu and then Netanyahu told Trump, look, they're all going to be in this place at this time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay, let's go for it, right?
Yeah. We're not going to get an opportunity like this again.
No. So it's pretty amazing. So I had some other things here, but I mean, we are after 9 o'clock, so we are winding it up. Um, I have another article, and possibly we'll have to talk about this next week because it's called Mass Islamic Immigration, a long-term strategy to transform Judeo-Christian civilization from within. And we're seeing that happen. The one thing I was wanting to say, and I was going to talk about with that, we see. I mean, there have been some successes. I think that one woman that's Muslim that was going to become a principal of a school in Texas, I think they've been able to stop her appointment to that position. They've got all of these people that are Muslim that are running for different offices around. They're trying to establish these Sharia law no-go zone, places, and everybody is, of course, up in arms about of this, and they should be. But I do have to look at the other side of the coin in some of this respect. The Muslims come, they're cousins, right? Some of these not every Muslim, but the basic, is Esau, cousin to Jacob, right?
Right.
They're the cousins. So God, he promised, that Esau's sons would, there'd be 12 sons, just like Jacob and the 12. So
Ishmael, he said, would be a wild donkey.
yes,
His hand would always be against his own brothers.
right.
Yeah.
So, but God cares about them, and I think that in some respects, this is a time. If you're out there and you have Muslim neighbors, um, if they're, coming into the environment, you have to be a strong Christian and show them that your God is the real God, right?
Right.
Yep.
They are only worshiping a moon god. So perhaps this is an end time push that God is bringing these people into Christian dominated areas so that they will actually be exposed to the gospel. Now, I think Europe has failed miserably.
Right.
That's something that we can't do. We know that they don't want to assimilate. We know that they're coming in for conquest, but we have the greater. And so we need to be strong and we need to be presenting the gospel as much as we possibly can.
Right.
We can't just cower back. We have to be bold and we have to stand up. And so that's one of the things I was going to say about that. I believe that God, I mean, He uses these things as opportunities. We see this as, gosh, we can't let this happen. Sharia law is not compatible with the United States of America.
We know God cares for the Muslims just like He cares for
Yes.
everybody. Yeah.
And so we know that they're not compatible, and we have to stand up against their ideology, and we have to. It's an ideology. It's not a religion. It's an ideology. They don't, as I've mentioned before, they do not separate mosque and state. It's a whole plan of conquest, and it's not to come and assimilate. It's to come and take over.
Right.
So, but we have the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on our side. We have the power of the Holy Spirit in Yeshua, and we need to stand up to this, and we need to back it down. You can do it in prayer, but like I said, perhaps these people are being brought amongst us to be witnessed to. And there have been a lot of people who have converted from Islam to the Christian faith. There's a huge groundswell of Christians in Iran, believe it or not. And so we need to pray that they can do supernatural warfare to overturn the situation there. But I will say this: we do know in the prophetic that Persia is still aligned with the enemies of the Western world. And when we know about the prophecy in Ezekiel 38, but uh, I don't. We need. If we don't stand up, this nation is going to fall just like Europe. And the people in Europe need to stand up. The people of Christian faith in Europe need to stand up and take back ground. It's a lot has been from these so-called secular leaders that think they're being so open and welcoming, right? The mass exodus into Europe is it's a second Ottoman Empire takeover is what's happening there. So, and I have seen they keep posting about how many churches over in Europe burning,
Mm-hmm.
catching on fire, burning to the ground. That just can't be. That's just not. It's just not a coincidence. I don't believe.
Nope.
So anyway, so that's just one of the things I was going to say. Other side of the coin, God may be bringing these people into more of a Christian influence. I mean, He gives everybody a chance.
Well, the other side of the coin is that anti-Semitism is increasing,
Yes.
and we should be witnessing to Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Paul said we should witness to Jews first,
Yes.
the witness to Jews first, and then other people.
Well, and
Gentiles.
I forgot where it was, but there was an imam a few months ago who said we're either taking over or they're going to kick us out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, well, you know, if you're in my neighborhood,
Yeah. And so that's the problem. That's why this all ties in because that's these primaries that are coming up. We have to have the right people in the leadership. Now, I think that one of these women that's a nut job that she was spouting off anti-Semitic,
Anti-Zionism. Yeah.
anti-Zionism. Everybody who's a Zionist should be put in jail, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She didn't win. She was bounced out. So, so we can take heart on some of these things, but we do have to be diligent, persistent, aware. That's why we bring these things to you in this program. We're trying to make you aware, know what to stand up against, know how to direct your prayers. And like I said, pray for the fact that for these Muslim people that are around, that they get a vision of the Lord. We know they are in these Muslim countries. Of course, I know why the Lord has to do that because I think it was only this past week that they turned the internet back on in Iran, and that's limited.
Right.
So people are cut off. People are cut off in these Muslim nations. They don't get the freedom of being able to hear these things.
They don't get the truth.
They don't get the truth. So Yeshua sometimes steps in and he appears to these people.
Right.
There was a guy there for a while on TBN. There were a couple of these Muslims that had become believers. Walid Shubat is one, but I can't remember the other gentleman. He was going out as an evangelist, and he would go around and preach to Muslims in certain places. And he said that there were two guys that were Muslims that were sent to kill him because, of course, he's preaching the gospel to Muslims. And so they're in this car, this little car, and they're going to drive to his event. And he said,
Billy Graham.
Huh?
He was Billy Graham.
No, this is a different guy.
Oh, okay.
No. This guy is I can't remember his name, but he was a Muslim guy.
He was going to be the perpetrator.
He was
Okay.
no. Okay, listen. Guy was a Muslim who became a Christian. He was an evangelist over in the Muslim nations to Muslims, right?
Right.
Okay. He was saying that two guys were sent to kill him
Okay.
because he was preaching to the Muslims. Okay. So these two guys are driving along in a car to come there. That was their mission. Going to kill this Muslim evangelist who was not Muslim. He was a Christian now. He had become a believer in Jesus. He is raised Muslim, just like Walid Shubat, but became a believer. But he said, as these guys are driving along, all of a sudden, he said, I popped up in the back seat. These two guys saw me in their back seat and they're freaking out. He said, he's in our back seat, you know, but then, disappeared, right? So they get to the thing and they're like shaking, like we're supposed to kill him, but he was in our car, you know. They thought he was in God let him see an angel that looked just like him in their car, right? Evidently. So they were going to get in, but they just got, they got in this meeting and he was preaching and they got saved. They were there to kill him. And then he got to find out the story later when they came up, and they told him, we were sent here to kill you. And then you appeared in our car. And he's like, what? I've been here the whole time,
Yeah.
And they said, no, you were in our car. We don't know how you did it, but you were in our back seat. so God can do miraculous things to witness to these people. So that's what he had to do to those two guys, and they became believers. So it's possible. And I can't remember. There's several of these, and they have to live with protection here in this country, even because anyone who converts from Islam to Christianity, you have a death sentence on your head from then on because you have left the faith.
Mhm.
And so it's so anyone can take you out at any time. And so even I guess for Walid Shubat, it's a dangerous thing. But we got to pray that that this is that this happens more and more. Miraculous things for these
Right.
people to become believers in Yeshua. That's the goal, right?
Amen.
Take as many with us as we can before the whole thing wraps up. So, well, any other thing?
Don't have anything
No
else.
Bible codes?
Nope, no Bible codes tonight.
Any updates on health?
No, other than the fact that I think Nancy's doing better. So.
Doing better. Awesome.
Awesome.
So, great. Any health updates with you?
Just got my imaging the 6th and 7th of June and the follow-up appointment on the 8th. Hoping to be spiking footballs and sounding shofars after that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. I'm convinced I'm healed. There's too much good going on with my health right now.
Awesome.
So,
Now we are praising the Lord, right?
yes, we are every minute.
Every minute. Absolutely. Tomorrow is Shabbat. And so we will be back here for Shabbat service. And then next week, once again, Hebrew class on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll be back here. Same time, same place. I've got a lot to do next week. Taking care of kitties. And then this guy, huh? He's gonna he have another little procedure, right?
On Friday.
On Friday. So pray for him in that situation. So if you want to help keep this program coming your way, Jim will tell you how.
If you'd like to make a donation, you can send it through the mail to Truth in Life Today, 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959. That's Truth in Life Today, 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959. And in your envelope, stick a little note in there and tell us how you'd like your donation be used.
And we hope that you enjoyed the program this evening. We hope you join us again next week, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Central Time on Rumble, on YouTube, and Twitch. Until we see you.